Hi, I'm Sadie,
And I'm Chris.
and we're Fork and Path.
Today we're going to share with you our experience at a Yucatan apiary and how we saw honey used in Mexican culture.
Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you like it.
While we were in Merida, we had the chance to visit a Mayan apiary in a little town called Peto.
We were able to do this because our friend Fran is from the area and his dad Ted is a bee farmer.
Hi, I'm Fran. This is my dad Ted, and he runs a traditional Mayan apiary here in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Now, Ted's been working with bees since he was about 7 years old, and he was gracious enough to take us on a tour of his apiary and show us how he actually collects his honey.
It was a pretty sweet experience.
Indeed, it was.
We saw honey all over the Yucatan, and it had a wide range of uses.
Indeed, in food, we found honey and honey products like bee pollen and honeycomb all over the place, used in sauces, as sweeteners for beverages, glazes, in pastries and cakes, you name it. But my favorite application was these tiny little honey candies. These are delicious.
Honey is also used in a lot of medicinal and homeopathic remedies. Before I jump into these, we are definitely not doctors, and this is absolutely not medical advice. Because of honey's antibacterial and anti-inflammatory properties, we saw it used in everything from burn creams to eye drops. It's also used as a cough syrup, as a remedy for allergies. We even see it in beauty products like lip balms and lotions, things like that. In fact, Ted told us that bee stings actually can help with arthritis, so people will actually sting themselves with a bee on joints that have arthritis.
It's true.
We've arrived at the hut where we are going to get ready to check on the bees. Our first step is to start burning corn cobs in this canister. You can see there is a bellows on the back of the canister. We will use the smoke to drive the bees to evacuate the hive. Next step, we bee suit up.
We're getting ready to go see the bees, so let's move.
Each stack of boxes is its own colony. The 3-layer colonies are the more mature ones, and the 2-layer ones are the newer colonies. 3 is the maximum stack Ted will have. After a stack is full, he can create another colony. To do this, he will take out eggs in a few frames with mature bees and put these into a new 2-box setup. One of the eggs must have a queen, which you can tell by the egg being shaped like a peanut. The new queen will be born within 14 days. About 15 days later, she will begin laying eggs and start the new colony. Ted is smoking the bees so they will start to evacuate their hives. Chris even got to have a go at smoking them out. We smoke the top layer of the hive we are checking on first. Because of the time of year, there won't be any honey, but we will be checking on the bees to make sure the hive is healthy. The first hive we are checking on has 3 boxes. The bottom box is used for feeding and the top 2 are for accumulating honey. To get to the bottom box, we have to move progressively down. You can tell they aren't collecting honey by how little honeycomb they've grown. Right now there is not a lot of growth. Then we check the next layer. We're smoking the hive again, and some of the bees are going down to the bottom layer to protect the queen. The other bees are evacuating. There is always more honeycomb on the second box because it's closer to food. Here, Ted is teaching us about the makeup of the hive. The queen always lives in the bottom box. She can produce up to 2,000 larvae per day. After a bee is about 8 days old, its job is to clean the hive. After the bee is fully mature, it's considered a worker bee. Worker bees have many different jobs. There are nurses who feed and care for the young bees. There are collector bees who go out and get pollen. There are sentry bees whose job it is to protect the hive. There are also undertakers, builders, and temperature controllers. Finally, there is the drone, who Ted calls the, quote, man of the house. His job is to drink honey and eventually mate with the queen and die. You always want to handle the frames in the boxes on one side so you avoid the swarm. Now let's head back to Ted so he can explain what he does with the honeycomb and honey. This wax puck is one of the products that the bees produce.
The way that this specific product comes is by gathering the honeycomb and placing it in a bucket that is brought to a boil. At that point, it is then placed into this plastic bucket that provides the shape.
That's what forms the space here.
Yes, however, in order for that to be formed, there has to be a solution. Typically, it's just going to be hot water.
Okay.
Sometimes they do add a little bit of salt to kind of keep it all together.
Okay.
However, it's only typically going to be hot water, and that's the way that he does it.
This puck is run through a machine that cuts off sections of wax and molds it into thin sheets with a honeycomb pattern. The thin sheet is put into a frame. The honeycomb pattern will give the bees a bit of a head start while creating their honeycombs. Ted will put in new sheets about a week or two before the start of the honey production season. You can have up to 10 frames in a box. There are 2 honey production seasons. The first one is in April and May, and it applies to apiaries that are located in the deep jungle like the one we saw today.
So once the wax and the honey has come into shape, there will be honey.
Okay.
And once he spots that honey is being produced, he will typically go in there bi-weekly to take it out and start producing.
Okay, so it's an active. It's not just a one-time thing.
It's not a one-time thing. It's you have to go at least 4 times per honey producing season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he has multiple locations that he has to alternate.
So in that 2-month period when they're producing honey, he has to go at least 4 times, if not more, to go extract the honey.
Yes.
And so it allows the bee, and that just helps the bees produce more honey. Otherwise, it kind of just overload.
Yeah.
The second honey season is in January and February and applies to apiaries on the outskirts of the jungle with smaller plants and flowers around.
It's called phase 2, even though it starts on the first month of the year. It's going to be January all the way to February. And that takes about a month and a half of extraction time. And he's able to go and check on the bees once a week, but in this specific phase, he only takes honey out 3 times.
Oh, okay, so just lower production?
Way lower production for tahonal, which is going to be the short flowers where bees go out.
I got you.
Yeah.
So the shorter flowers.
It's going to be more on the outskirts of the deep jungle.
La única diferencia de que
There
la
is
miel
really
de
only one difference between these types of honey. The honey from outskirt apiaries crystallizes much faster than honey from deep jungle apiaries. Now Ted is telling us how they harvest the honey.
So once full, they have a special cutting knife that allows them to slice off those pieces.
So what it kind of grows over?
Yes.
Okay.
That is the overgrowth of that.
Exacto.
Okay.
Exacto.
This honeycomb is what is used to make the wax puck product we saw earlier. After the excess honeycomb is removed, the frames are put into an extractor. 4 frames fit in Ted's extractor. You spin the frames using the lever for 2 to 3 minutes at a very fast pace. Then you flip the frames and spin again for another 2 to 3 minutes. This extracts both sides of the honeycomb.
After he's done with that, there's still 3 or 4 more extraction dates where he can come in and keep doing the same procedure. So he will take the panel and place it back in the box.
The honey collects at the bottom of the barrel. Once the barrel is full, the mechanism will start to slow down and become harder to spin. The next step is to drain the honey into a non-reactive container.
So this is actually, there's a little bit more to it, and it's going to be a double filtration process where he uses a strainer as opposed to a machine.
This is important because the extraction process happens in the jungle, so there can be debris in the honey.
So it's just a physical filtration part, like no chemicals, no nothing else. So it's just going through the physical barriers, and then you have pure honey at the end going into that clean bucket. Seal it, done.
That's not.
Then,
Goes into barrels, and typically he needs about 20 boxes to fill out a big barrel.
so one of these barrels, and that's one season.
That's
so
in
20
one
boxes
season.
in one season makes one of these barrels.
So in each colony that he has, he will have about 9 to 10 boxes.
Wow.
Present in one location, and they're very, very small colonies that he has. However, the quality of honey that he produces is great.
And I've tasted it, so I can attest to that. It is fantastic honey. While the entire experience was pretty fantastic, there were some specific things I thought were really cool. One was seeing how the bees interact with each other and really communicate and move as one. That's amazing. Also getting a chance to pull out one of the panels by myself and see all of the bees clinging to it, protecting the queen, I thought was pretty fascinating. And finally was simply learning how honey is harvested. I never really understood the process before, but now that I do, I appreciate it that much more.
Some of the coolest things for me were actually driving to the apiary. It was amazing. We were in the back of this truck and this wide red dirt road driving into the Yucatán jungle. It was pretty cool. Then actually seeing all of the bees stinging you repeatedly and not feeling it because you're in the bee suit was pretty amazing. We were just covered with bee stingers at the end of it, and I didn't get stung at all, so I was a happy camper.
I got stung once, just right on the seam on my head, but you know, these things happen.
And the final coolest thing was just seeing the sheer number of bees that are in a single hive. It's insane. It was like dripping with bees. I can't even explain it any other way.
All right, everyone. That's all we've got for you today. We hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure you hit the like button below and subscribe to our channel for future videos.
And don't forget to check us out on Instagram, and make sure you head over to our website to sign up for our newsletter to get the latest on what we're up to. Sláinte!